To your knowledge, this was particularly offensive to Mr. Combs because of Kid Cudi's stature in the industry, right?
To my knowledge, yeah.
And Mr. Combs was irate over this, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Combs was not cheating on you with other celebrities, right?
I don't know.
You don't recall what kind of drugs you took?
I mean, it was usually always the same kind of thing. So I would guess that's what we took, like ecstasy or MDMA.
We're about an hour away from testimony resuming in Diddy's federal sex trafficking trial. Another former bad boy artist is set to retake the stand to detail his alleged bad acts to the jury. And cameras are banned inside the courtroom, but with the help of AI, testimony is being heard like never before. This morning, we're focusing on Cassie's cross and what could tip the scales. And in the retrial for defendant Karen Reed, the medical examiner took the stand last week and described the injuries to John O'Keefe, which contributed to his death. Our experts weigh in on what it means for the case against his former girlfriend. And the man convicted of the murder of Holly Bobo is asking for a new trial. We're shining a spotlight on his case. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Monday morning to you and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm your host, Julie Grant. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. We planned a great show for you this morning, so let's get it started. Grab that cup of coffee. It's time for my opening statement. They're off to the races. The federal government is well on its way to proving the charges against Sean Diddy Combs. What we heard from Cassie Ventura legally constitutes so much more than domestic violence. Her testimony arguably proves 2 counts of that indictment. Count 2, that Cassie was sex trafficked by Combs, and count 3, that Cassie and commercial sex workers were transported by Combs to engage in prostitution. With count 2, legally, what you need is somebody providing somebody else to engage in a commercial sex act by force or by coercion and across state lines. With count 3, you need to knowingly transport somebody across state lines to engage in prostitution and to, in fact, do so. And Cassie testified that Combs controlled her life, her career opportunities, her finances, nearly everything, and that he would coerce her into those freak-offs, for which they traveled to different U.S. cities. She would have sex for days with paid male escorts who were procured from different places so that Combs could watch and masturbate. Combs would continue giving Cassie money, she said, career opportunities, and a lavish lifestyle, and would go so far as to blackmail her with videos of those freak-offs in order to intimidate her into doing more. That is what she said. She testified that the freak-offs left her physically hurting and physically sick, and they became like her job. My friends, all of those facts legally establish the elements that prosecutors have to prove with the crimes of sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution with respect to Cassie Ventura. Yes, domestic violence was present in their relationship, but week 1's evidence arguably proves much more. Conduct that was in violation of federal laws. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. We'll have more on this case coming up in just a moment, but first, let's get you your daily docket.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree felony murder.
All right, in Michigan, we've got convicted killer Linda Sturmer learning her fate today. You'll recall she was convicted last month for the murder of her husband. Sentencing for her is going to begin at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. In Massachusetts, we've got the prosecution's case continuing in defendant Karen Reed's retrial. Court resumes at 9 a.m. Eastern. We will go there live together when it does. And in New York, we've got Diddy's sex trafficking trial resuming at 9 a.m. Eastern Time with more testimony from Diddy's former artist, Don Richard. And that is our top story as his case continues this morning. It's the focus for many people in the true crime community and across the country. Now, although Cassie Ventura's marathon testimony may be over, jurors are hearing more testimony that helps corroborate some of it from another bad boy artist, Dawn Richard. She's going to continue with her direct examination today. This as prosecutors are trying to point to Diddy's alleged physical and sexual abuse of Ventura and other people. For more on Friday's action, let's go to New York City now. Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft is outside the courthouse with the latest.
Good morning to you, Julie. The criminal trial for Sean Combs will get back underway shortly here in New York City. On Friday, it was such an emotional day inside the courthouse here. Cassie Ventura on the stand, breaking down at times as she was talking about those freak-offs. After the cross-examination of Cassie was completed, Sean Combs actually hugged his defense counsel. Sean Combs listening closely as his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, detailed how she felt forced to take part in sexual freak-offs, testifying that Combs would take her phone, passport, watch, and other possessions when he was angry with her. She did burst into tears when she talked about the freak-offs, saying she would give back the $20 million settlement if she would have never had to do the freak-offs. After the conclusion of Cassie Ventura's testimony, her attorney read a statement from Cassie in which she thanked those who have supported her, and her husband Alex Fine said in a statement that Sean Combs thought he could break Cassie, but he couldn't.
This week has been extremely challenging, but also remarkably empowering and healing for me. I hope that my testimony has given strength and a voice to other survivors and can help others who have suffered to speak up and also heal from abuse and fear. For me, the more I heal, the more I can remember. And the more I can remember, the more I will never forget.
And Julie, when court does get back underway this morning here in New York City, Dawn Richard will be back on the witness stand for direct examination. She testified on Friday that she witnessed the situation in which Sean Combs was beating Cassie. Also this week, Cassie's mother is expected to be called as a witness. That's the latest from here in New York City. Julie, we'll send it back to you.
All right, thanks to Kelly Craft. Boy, oh boy, it's going to be another big week in this case. Dawn Richard, so key for so many reasons. Talking about how after she saw one of those terrible beatings, she said that Diddy said to her, "You best not say anything." I'm not quoting him directly, but he essentially said you shouldn't say anything because when people speak up, people go missing. She thought, what could that mean? Something with Cassie? Would Cassie go missing? Would she go missing? Let's talk about it. Let's bring in our guest. I'm so happy to have on the program criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Mario Gallucci. He's a heavy hitter up there in New York and New Jersey. Had another case at the federal courthouse this week. I'm going to ask him about that in a sec. And we have entertainment commentator, actress, photographer Holland Reed, someone who actually had worked together before with Diddy. Holland, good morning to you as well. Great to have you both here. Let's start with your thoughts on week number 1. Holland, tell me, what were the biggest takeaways for you, seeing this case that you've read so much about and spoken so much about, finally getting into the courtroom and finally getting that testimony under oath from these witnesses like Cassie?
Julie, I always love your loaded questions because, man, I don't have enough time in this segment to even dive into it. But I will say this. I was tearing up listening because there is so much healing that is happening, because silence is loyalty and loyalty is currency in the music industry. And unfortunately, that's what we are witnessing right now. We are witnessing someone so brave, speaking up no matter what happens. I say to her reputation, she's not trying to defend her actions. She's trying to state the facts. She is coming with truth and with humility, and also saying, yes, I did participate in this, but it was through coercion. It was through the acts of someone that was in power. It's insanely intense to listen to the things. When I was back last week on your show, I said the jurors have to be someone that are willing to deal with something so disgusting, disgusting as far as evidence. And this is exactly what I was talking about. There are so many layers to this. We know that. But as far as Cassie, I just saw someone who is 8.5 months pregnant, being brave to stand up to one of the biggest moguls in the world and say what she had to say to start shutting things down. This is a reckoning for the music industry. This is a reckoning for those who think that they've gotten away with things for so long. I couldn't be more proud of her, not just as a victim, but someone that literally has nothing to lose at this point. Like she said, like her lawyer said, she would give that money back if she was not a 21, 22-year-old, vulnerable, gullible, aspiring talent. And I'm just so proud that she was able to stand up there. And other than that, there's so much more to dive into, but yes, loaded question, Julie, loaded question.
I love your answers, loaded answers, Holland. I could hear, I could listen to you all day, honest to goodness. I could.
Sorry.
No, I love it. I love everything you said there, preach. I'm with you. I think Cassie is gonna be the face of surviving abuse and domestic violence and sex trafficking. I really do. I think she's going to be a survivor we all remember for a long, long time. Of course, she's not perfect. Of course not. Mario Gallucci, let me ask you about that. Holland referenced a couple things I want to dive into with you. The testimony about Cassie saying, quote, "I'd give that money back if I never had to do freak-offs," talking about the $20 million in settlement money she got from Sean Combs back in November of 2023. His defense team had some ammunition there to throw at her with that, saying that, look, you know, you didn't go to police, you went to civil court with a lawyer, you wanted money. Mario, how far do you think those arguments are going to go with the jury, considering the other brutal testimony that they heard about what she was made to endure?
Good morning, Julie. So credibility is always an issue. And what they're trying to do is destroy this young lady's credibility. They're trying to say that she was money hungry, that, you know, she participated willingly in these events, and that now she wants money for doing it. How far did it go? I don't think it went very far. I agree that she's coming off very well here. She's very courageous. I think that she's going to be the poster child for all women who have gone through these things. She's coming in there 8 months pregnant, and I think she's doing a wonderful job up there for not only for herself, but for the many people that have also gone through the same types of events.
Yeah, most definitely. Beautifully said, Mario. I have a clip that we were able to give to everybody based on IA technology that we married with the actual court transcripts to generate some voices to read exactly what Cassie said. And this explains a little bit of why she stayed and why she continued to endure the abuse that she says she received throughout the progression of her relationship with Combs.
Ms. Ventura, you were upset that you weren't integrated into Mr. Combs' family life, right?
Yep.
That you didn't get a chance to form a relationship with his children, right?
Correct?
You had been together with him for years at this point, right?
Almost 7 years here.
And you still hadn't been on family trips with him and his children, right?
Nope.
When you would see photos of him and Kim, that was extremely hurtful, right?
Not always.
If you saw them on social media when he was on vacation with Kim and his kids together, that was a little heartbreaking, right?
It could be.
Okay, a little clip on the cross there. Holland, we know this is complicated. You've been on the show many times before when we've talked about domestic violence cases, and it's not so easy for someone to just depart a relationship. It's more layered than that. They just want the violence to stop. Here, I'm curious if you see grooming going on. You know, when they met, he was 37, she was 19. And you know the music industry, Holland. You know, Cassie had a lot of talent and a lot of potential. I'm curious if you see any of that being done by Diddy to get her in a position where he may have wanted to keep her.
Oh, absolutely. Cassie was not an artist to him. She was a slave. She was a tactic. She was a tool that he used to coerce other individuals. And that's literally what she was. And that is what this case is all about. She was not a human to him. She was a property. She was a piece of property. And that is what is being exposed.
I appreciate the analysis, Holland. You know, I love how frank you are. Mario, let me ask you, you were practicing at that courthouse last week in Southern District of New York. You go there all the time. How long did it take you to get in the courthouse? What was it like compared to other days when you're there with your cases?
So it generally will take an attorney about 3 minutes to get through security and, up to the elevator in the courtroom. It took me over an hour to get to court, which I wasn't expecting. So of course I was delayed. But yeah, it's a circus. They always are. It's the Southern District. It's the rock and roll district. You get all the popular cases. It's in a great location in, Lower Manhattan. So I'm right across the street from the state court, by the way.
Ah, okay. Okay, very good. Good to know. Good to have that insight. Well, we'll keep talking about this. We're not done talking about it on this show. Holland, I know you have other things on your agenda today. We have to let you go. Thank you for coming on the program. We'll talk again soon. And Mario's going to stay with us. Want you to do the same at home, please. There's much more to talk about with Sean Diddy Combs. We're going to have testimony from this case. Key testimony coming in from Cassie Ventura on the cross. And we're bringing it to you with the help of AI. Plus,
the cause of death was determined to be blunt impact injuries of head and hypothermia, and the manner was undetermined.
Testimony in Karen Reed's retrial resumes in our next hour. So what did we learn from the testimony about John O'Keefe's head injuries? We're going to break down the medical examiner's finding with our experts in what's trending in true crime.
Is Karen Reed a killer girlfriend?
She's guilty.
Or the scapegoat in an elaborate cover-up?
Karen Reed was framed!
Karen Reed is accused of murdering her police officer boyfriend.
Defendant stated repeatedly, I hit him.
She may end up taking the stand. Her first trial ended with a hung jury. They haven't proven anything.
Will a jury finally agree on a verdict? We know who did it.
The Karen Reed murder retrial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
I did examine his lower extremities. That is protocol in any case of suspected impact with a motor vehicle. So I did examine his legs, and I did not see any evidence of an impact site.
Testimony about Officer John O'Keefe's head injuries is what's trending this morning in true crime. Court is set to resume this morning in just about 40 minutes from now. The prosecution is expected to call a neurosurgeon soon. Last week, the Commonwealth called witness Dr. Irini Scorti-Bello. She works for the Norfolk County Medical Examiner's Office, and she performed the autopsy on John O'Keefe. She told the jury about the various injuries on his body, specifically the ones to the back of his head.
Were the skull fractures in the same or different area?
The skull fractures were in multiple areas of the skull. When we reflected and when we pulled back the scalp, I noted that there was blood, what we call hemorrhage, under the laceration or associated with the laceration on the back of the right head. And then furthermore, there were skull fractures associated with that laceration, abrasion on the right side of the head.
Scorti-Bello was also asked about her conclusion on John O'Keefe's cause of death. Take a listen.
To a reasonable degree of medical certainty, did you reach a conclusion about the cause of Mr. O'Keefe's death?
Yes. The cause of death was determined to be blunt impact injuries of head and hypothermia.
Okay, so what do you think of the injuries to John O'Keefe's head? What does it tell us? Does it support the state's theory that Karen Reed hit him with her SUV and knocked him over? A sideswipe kind of thing, not running him over, but just hitting him, knocking him off balance so that he hit the back of his head on the hard, cold ground. That is the Commonwealth's theory. Does the forensic evidence support it? Let's bring in board-certified forensic pathologist Dr. Priya Banerjee and attorney and former investigator Tommy Pope. Great to see you both. Dr. Priya, let me begin with you. Do the injuries and what you can glean from the autopsy support the legal theory that the Commonwealth is trying to prove?
I think my colleague did what I would have done in this case. I think she's very unbiased, and said undetermined, because all we know from a head anatomy, autopsy perspective is that his head hit the ground hard. Now, did he slip and fall? Was he pushed back by a car, etc.? I think those are both possibilities. You're still going to get him going from a standing position and hitting a frozen ground, which is hard. And I think they asked about grass. If the ground is frozen and there's snow on it, you might not even see grass in his head. So I think undetermined is the right manner. I don't think the cause of death is really an issue, right? We know he died from injury, so that's the cause of death. The manner of death is what's in question.
Sure, and so maybe let me ask this a little bit differently. I guess I don't want you to even be concerned about that, but do the injuries that you've looked at and what is listed in the report and testified to by the ME, does that support the state's theory about him being hit by the car, knocked off bounds, falling? Is what I'm saying is it plausible that you would see those injuries from what they're, okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering. Okay, so to you, that checks out. Yeah.
Now, the curious point is there's no strike to the legs or where the bumper would hit him, or the taillight in this case. I mean, I guess they're saying there's an abrasion on the knee, but I don't think there's a huge impact site now, depending on what he's wearing and how hard he was hit. I still think it's a possibility.
Gotcha. Okay, Dr. Priya, thank you for that. Tell me, Pope, you're really a master when it comes to legal work, a master prosecutor you were. Tell me, this is a very contentious case, and we know we've already had the benefit of seeing it, tried once, albeit a little bit clumsily. Tell me, if you were in the driver's seat this time, if you're Hank Brennan, the way to go about proving what you're set to prove, how would you do it in terms of the forensics, the injuries, to prove the theory they're seeking to put forth?
I think what you have to do, Scott, not go too far out on a limb. In other words, the forensics are what they are. I used to love manner of death. If it was so abundantly clear, it'd be a dramatic moment. I'd get the doctor to say manner of death, and they'd say homicide, which basically just means taking the life of a human. So, but the cause of death, I agree with the doctor, is clear. I think the manner, one reason, and the doctor can chime in on this, but one reason you may not have the manner is clear from the medical examiner or the pathologist is because the investigation seems to me to be much tighter and much clearer now at the point of trial than it was back during the investigation. And I think as the pieces come together, what the prosecution's got to do is lean on the evidence that I hit him, and know that that's the beginning cause. You remember from law school, Paul's graph, and the case of what caused what all down the line, the proximate cause. And I think in this case, whether she hits him, I don't see any way the car is causing this injury. Again, I'm not a pathologist, but I think what we need to see is the evidence surrounding that starts this process that ends up with him falling and hitting the ground.
Right. And Tommy, a follow-up for you, please. Some jurisdictions won't even let you have your ME testify to the manner of death and say the word homicide because it seems prejudicial. And Massachusetts may be one of them. We need to ask one of our Massachusetts lawyers about that next time they're on. But Tommy, tell me, if they don't get the manner of death through the ME, and they didn't, she wouldn't commit to anything, that's not fatal to the case, is it? How do you go about it as a prosecutor to establish it otherwise?
I think we got to do exactly what you said, establish otherwise. You got to use here's what the injury was, here's how it happened. And that's what you got to do with the evidence from the other witnesses.
Exactly. You call other witnesses to get it in. You don't necessarily need to rely on your ME for that. Let's switch to another topic that's been a big point of conversation. We know that last week, several different witnesses who spoke to the forensics in this case were called: a criminalist, a DNA analyst, someone who did physical matching analysis. They were all questioned about the evidence found at 34 Fairview Road, specifically about Karen Reed's broken taillight and John O'Keefe's DNA.
I found one apparent piece of hair on the Lexus.
Can you share with us what you saw?
This is a close-up photo of the apparent piece of hair on the rear of the vehicle.
Mr. O'Keefe was found to, his known DNA profile was found to be an inclusion for the DNA profile from the swab from the defendant's passenger side tail light, correct?
He was included in the profile, yes. The DNA profile from this item is 510 non-alien times more likely to have originated from John O'Keefe.
And what did you find contained within that debris from John O'Keefe's clothing?
There was mostly debris, some apparent fibers.
Were there any pieces of apparent plastic contained within the debris?
Yes.
All right, so for you, what was the biggest scientific takeaway? Dr. Priya, tell us, what's the answer for you, please?
Well, I think this is, using all forensics, not just pathology, right? And that's what's going to help with this case. I think, my colleague, the investigator, had a perfect point. When you make a manner of death conclusion at autopsy or even a few months later, pending to undetermined, not everything is made available to the ME. I've been in those shoes, and I think given that multiple theories are plausible with the injuries we have undetermined, this is how you're going to steer the case, the other forensics, separate from the pathology. What does the DNA show? What does the scene investigation, fracture matching, which is where the tail light pieces are put together? That's really where the broader investigation and the science come in.
I appreciate that. That's an excellent and really helpful point, Dr. Priya. Thank you for that. You don't always have all the information, and correlation is key, is it not, to correlate what you find at autopsy with everything else the police are gathering. God bless the great Cyril Wecht, the late Dr. Cyril Wecht taught me that a long time ago. Yes. Yeah, and here, Dr. Priya, I know it's tough to look at another colleague in the profession's analysis. Obviously it's easy for all of us to kind of armchair quarterback, but do you think there was enough correlation done by that ME in terms of looking at all the other outside evidence that was gathered to ultimately form opinions?
Sure. I think given that the injuries are what they are and there's multiple possibilities as manners, I think, she stood by her determination on the stand. And I think that's a fair argument. I do want to say undetermined is a valid manner. When you cannot decide between two or more manners, even with all the evidence, and look at how we have a trial and a retrial arguing basically the manner and circumstances, that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, really great insight. This is very helpful. Dr. Priya Banerjee, let's continue the conversation about the forensics as this trial rolls on. We'll let you go for now. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you.
And Tommy Pope is coming with us. Please do the same at home. Still to come, we're talking about the Holly Bobo murder mystery and the defendant who says he lied on the stand.
Do you know who did?
No, sir.
Oh my, so could this result in a new trial for the one man convicted of Holly Bobo's murder? That's next. Plus, we got more of Cassie's AI testimony as we ask the question, will she be the one to tip the scales of justice against Sean Diddy Combs? Welcome back. This morning in our spotlight, we're talking about the murder of 20-year-old nursing student Holly Bobo and how her killer's efforts are ongoing to get a new trial. So listen to this. So Zachary Adams is going to be back in court later this morning for a post-conviction relief hearing that's supposed to last a few days. This is an attempt by him to overturn his conviction. So he was convicted of Holly Bobo's murder back in 2017. But now, another defendant who testified against him at trial has recanted his testimony. So Mr. Adams is petitioning the court for a brand new trial. Court TV's Julia Janae has the backstory.
First-degree felony murder of Holly Lynn Bobo during the perpetration of or attempt to perpetrate kidnapping of Holly Lynn Bobo. You checked guilty of first-degree felony murder with Holly Lynn Bobo. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
20-year-old Holly Bobo disappeared from her home in 2011. 6 years later, Zachary Adams was convicted for the kidnapping, rape, and killing of Bobo and was sentenced to life in prison thanks mostly to the testimony of this man.
Jason Autry, Jasonauttry.
Jason Autry testified at trial, recounting the day Bobo was kidnapped, claiming Zachary Adams and his brother wrapped Bobo in a blanket, placed her in the back of a pickup truck, drove her to a river, and shot her.
And I grabbed the upper torso of Miss Bobo. Jack come around, let the tailgate down. I brought the upper torso to the end of the tailgate.
But now Autry claims he made it all up. He sat down with Nick Barris at Scripps News Group Nashville before the trial to say this.
Make no mistake, Jason Autry is a liar. He told two stories, and the question now is, which one to believe? The answer will decide if a convicted killer goes free. And all of a sudden, Jason Autry is saying he made everything up, that he was able to make up all those details because his attorney provided him discovery. And with that discovery, he was able to sound very convincing at trial.
Zachary Adams is now appealing his conviction due to Autry recanting his testimony in hopes he will be granted a new trial.
Oh my, what a mess this case is. Julia Janae reporting there for us. So let's talk about whether convicted killer Zachary Adams should get a new trial. Let's bring in our legal eagles, Mario Gallucci and Tommy Pope. Mario, what do you think here? Just based on the little bit that we know, I recognize the hearing is going to begin today, so we'll know more in the coming days. But based on the little bit of reporting we have from Julia and from our Scripps affiliate, what are your thoughts, please?
So, Julie, this is a circumstantial evidence case. And when you think of circumstantial evidence, you should think of it as like a jigsaw puzzle. And the prosecutor's job is to take all the pieces of the puzzle, put them together, and have the jury follow that and put the whole puzzle together. So in this case, Autry's testimony was probably one of the largest pieces of that puzzle. There was not a lot of forensic evidence in this case to begin with. So Autry's testimony was the biggest piece of this puzzle, and more than likely the reason that there was a conviction here. Now, for him to recant everything that happened and be told that he received the discovery, which is not unusual, but that should have been brought out at the trial, that he had received the discovery, that he had read the discovery. And if you listen to his testimony there, it was pretty scripted in the fact that he was talking exactly about how somebody moved this way, and then I pulled the torso over here, and I lowered the back of the car. I mean, those are things that you would see in discovery. So this is going to be very interesting to see what happens going forward at this hearing.
Yeah, great points, Mario. Thank you. Tommy, your thoughts on this, whether this guy could get a new trial here?
I think, the issue now, if I understand it, initially he made an appeal for a new trial based on these statements. I do notice the co-defendant, first thing he says is, I didn't have anything to do with it. And so oftentimes what I've seen is once they're in prison, they've kind of exhausted one angle. So I'm talking about Autry now. They'll come up with another angle to try to get themselves in a better position, and they really don't care about the collateral damage. But the PCR, as both of you know, is really, did the court do the right job? Did my attorneys do the right job? And so I think Mario really hit on something there. If this was there for subject to cross in the first place and the attorney didn't do it, the defense attorney didn't do it, was he effective as counsel? And that may be the best angle on the PCR more than the recanting, because I saw under their law, normally the recanting has to do with, does it create an alibi? Does it create a clear pattern of not guilty? And the judge had ruled in that part that that was not the case, that even though he recanted, it didn't change all the other evidence.
Oh, great points. Tommy, thank you for that. Mario, tell me, if you were representing Zachary Adams, tell me, what would be some of the things you would be raising this week as you go before the court in the hearing? What would you really key in on in terms of his rights and why he potentially should receive a fair trial again?
So I would want to see if there's any communication between Autry and Adams since he's been incarcerated. If you could show that they haven't spoken to each other, that there's no communication between the two of them, and that Autry, out of nowhere, had a coming to Jesus moment, and he said, I testified, I lied, and this man is now in jail for the rest of his life. So I think that's what he probably needs to demonstrate, is that there's no communication between these two, that Adams had nothing to do with Autry's recanting of the testimony. And like I said earlier, the forensics in this case was minimal. I mean, Autry's testimony was it. I mean, Autry's testimony was the biggest piece of the puzzle.
Right. Mario, that's such an important point when we think about what Holly Bobo's family is probably going through right now, probably nervous as ever, thinking, oh my gosh, is all that hard work going to be undone? Is the justice going to go backwards now? Will prosecutors be able to prove it a second time around? This is just such an awful case, one that's been talked about in the true crime community for a long time, and clearly we're not done. So our hearts go out to Holly Bobo's family. Excellent analysis from you both, as always. Tommy, we'll see you at 9 a.m. when we go live together to Massachusetts. Mario's coming with us. We're going to talk a little more on Diddy next. We're going to talk about Cassie's cross. And with a little help of AI technology, we're taking you into the courtroom.
And it was common for lots of people to want to spend time with him, right?
Right.
He was in high demand, right?
Yes.
Why did you want to spend so much time with him?
I wanted to spend so much time with him. I mean, at this point in 2010, because I had fallen in love with him and cared about him very much.
Welcome back. And now for what's tipping the scales. It's more jaw-dropping testimony from inside Diddy's trial. Cassie Ventura bravely taking the stand and testifying for the federal government. And that also means that Diddy's defense team had a chance to cross her. Cameras aren't allowed in federal court, unfortunately. Maybe the law will change on that. But through the help of AI technology, we can kind of take you inside the courtroom. So keep in mind, the audio you're about to hear is AI generated, but the words we took directly from the court transcript. So here you're going to see Cassie reading from a text chain between her and Combs.
Can we begin reading, and I will be Mr. Combs, the fourth message from the bottom, and go backwards.
Would that be at the Me Too?
I'll begin. I miss you already.
Me too.
When do you want to freak off, LOL?
LOL. I am just going up to change and put my ring in. I just picked it up. I'm always ready to freak off. LOLOL.
Let's just pause there. When you say, I'm always ready to freak off, this was sent on August 5th, 2009, correct?
Yes.
And how long had you been dating Mr. Combs at this point?
Almost 2 years.
And you have already had freak-offs before this, correct?
Yes.
I'll continue reading. You tell me the day. You choose.
It can be whenever.
Name the night.
I feel like the weekend, like a Friday night, would be best because we'd want time to recover for work or the work week, right? This upcoming weekend, the 8th, is the only one I have until the 28th.
Okay, I'm on it.
LOL. Okay, but if you can't, we can always do it during the week. You know that doesn't matter to me.
Can we pause? When you say we know that doesn't matter to me, you're saying that you understand that Mr. Combs knows that you don't mind whether or not it's on a weekend or during the week, right?
That's what it says, yeah.
Okay. Then Mr. Combs says, Friday it is. I wish we could get Jules here.
LOL. Maybe we could. We don't know him that well, though.
You want to call him and feel him out?
Yeah, I can do that.
Call him now, please.
You want me to make you a bowl?
What do you understand make you bowl to mean?
Some food.
Was this entire text message exchange kind of typical of your communications with Mr. Combs?
Somewhat typical, one of the conversations.
Still with me for some analysis. Let's bring in high-profile criminal defense attorney Mario Gallucci, who was a prosecutor at one point in time. All right, Mario, so tell me what you think in terms of what the defense did with Cassie on cross and how much weight the jury is going to give her testimony.
So you hit on this in your opening statement when you said that they're trying to prove sex trafficking. And in order to prove the sex trafficking, they need certain elements. That cross-examination demonstrated that she could have been a consenting adult, that she agreed to all of these activities, and that she was a willing participant. Not only a willing participant, but a participant that actually participated in putting them together, arranging the days to do them, looking forward to them. And in all of this, the bowl was important, prepare a bowl, because that showed that as she's putting together the freak off, she's actually even thinking about, hey, do you want something to eat? So how bad could it have been? So this is the defense trying to say that she is a strong woman and a consenting adult, and she agreed to these freak-offs.
Mario, do you think that the defense, because of the way they did a very extensive cross, as you know, 2 days, went through everything. They dove a lot into her therapy, a lot into the domestic violence. Do you think in any way what they were trying to show that she was consenting could backfire? Do you think that jurors could become resentful given the evidence, or do you think that they had to go there and had to do their job and try to paint her as somebody who wanted to be in all of this, in it for everything with him?
So as a defense attorney, you attack, and you can over-attack. But in this case, I don't see an over-attack. It was a methodical cross-examination, trying to get out the points that they wanted to get out to show that she's a strong person, she's a consenting adult, and she agreed to these things. Now, the jury's also going to see that she was beaten, she was drugged, she at one point didn't want to do it anymore, so they're going to have to take both of those into consideration. But the defense did a good job of trying to demonstrate that she was a consenting adult, agreed to it, and actually wanted. It seemed to me that she, in that text exchange, that she actually wanted to do a freak-off, that it was her idea. So it's very telling.
Right. Well, it is, and tough, too. I think also, I'm sure you'd agree, Mario, for folks who maybe never practiced in criminal court or tried a domestic violence case, some were never in a domestic violence relationship, some may think, well, gosh, why didn't she just leave? This was horrible. Tell me, how key do you think it's going to be for the government to provide an expert to come in and try to make sense of some of Cassie's behavior?
So they have to bring in a domestic violence expert, and the domestic violence expert is going to discuss the cycle of violence. And there's a whole chart that they would use to show that she's groomed. She was groomed to be this. One of the analysts today said that she was a prop, that she was a tool. So that would be one of the roles of the triangle of violence, and that is why a domestic violence expert would be important here, to show at some point they're so beaten down that they just agree.
Yeah, you know, that's it. I mean, the confusion, the agreement, yeah, and sometimes just to not endure a beating, just go along to get along, kind of. Yeah, really, really key stuff. I can't wait for that expert's testimony. Mario Gallucci, you've got to get to court. You have cases to win. Thank you so much for the great insight and analysis this morning. We'll see you back here very soon. And that is all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. If you liked it, share it. Tell your friends about it. We're here every weekday morning at 8 a.m. to get you all ready for Court TV Live.